Oh, nice. At least they kept the champ as the A-side fighter. I thought that they might switch things up and put the challenger as the A-side due to name recognition, but no, they kept it pretty real here. What's good? It's Woog. We've got Denis Berinchyk, or Berinchyk, 19 wins, 0 losses, defending his WBO lightweight title against Keyshawn Davis, 12 wins, 0 losses, and 1 no contest. Denis Berinchyk won this title in a vacant bout against Emmanuel Navarrete. Navarrete was trying to go up and win a title in his 4th division, but I feel like bodily wise and just Navarrete's style, his stature, I feel like he tops out at 130 and that 135 might be a bridge too far. But Denis Berinchyk beat Navarrete to claim that vacant WBO lightweight title. It was a close fight, split decision, and we're gonna get into that. Denis Berinchyk also has a deep amateur pedigree. He was a silver medalist in the World Championships in 2011, and he's an Olympic silver medalist, as is his opponent, Keyshawn Davis. So we have 2 undefeated former Olympic silver medalists going at it here. Denis Berinchyk also messed with some bare knuckle boxing. He fought Artem Lobov. Some MMA fans might know who that is. Boxing fans would know Artem Lobov as the guy who beat Paulie Malignaggi in bare knuckle. But yeah, Berinchyk messed with the bare knuckle, stopped Artem Lobov, just totally outclassed him. But yeah, all that said about Berinchyks pedigree, his in-ring performances, the fact that he beat Emmanuel Navarrete, a lot of that stuff is kind of taking a back seat narrative-wise when you compare that to how the boxing public feels about Keyshawn Davis. Again, I thought that they might switch up the flyer because Keyshawn Davis is the hot shot name. Keyshawn Davis was the hot prospect after the Olympics. Keyshawn Davis is basically on the cusp of becoming a star in the sport. And often you might see the A side, B side being flipped, even if the guy who they choose as the B-side is in fact the champion. Like for instance, when Canelo fought Dimitri Bivol for Bivol's title, Canelo was the A-side, Bivol was the B-side. But granted, Keyshawn Davis is not Canelo, but I thought that he was still maybe a popular enough fighter to where Denis Berinchyk as the champion would take a back seat, at least on the fight poster. But it's actually refreshing when you see the boxing realm conduct business the way that it's supposed to be conducted. But yeah, Denis Berinchyk might be the champion, but if you look at the betting odds, he is a plus 500 with Keyshawn Davis being a minus 600. So Keyshawn Davis is a 6-1 favorite against the champ here. And again, undefeated champ, Ukrainian fighter, deep amateur pedigree, beat Navarrete. He's still a 5-1 underdog against Keyshawn Davis. And I think that a lot of that is because Keyshawn Davis is coming off a career best performance, a spectacular 2nd round knockout over Gustavo Lemos, who blew weight by several pounds. Like, a lot of people thought that Keyshawn Davis maybe shouldn't have taken that fight because of how much Gustavo Lemos came in over the limit. But Keyshawn Davis didn't bat an eye. He wanted to go through with the fight. Plus the fight was in his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. And you know that that is often a recipe for disaster. We often see high performers underperform when they fight in their hometown. That wasn't the case here with Keyshawn Davis. Like, this was a dangerous proposition, and this was probably also his best opponent. I know that Pedraza is a former champion, but Pedraza, by the time he fought Keyshawn Davis, was so far over the hill that he's really kind of a shell of himself by this point. I mean, Pedraza just got stopped a couple of weeks ago again, but Keyshawn Davis stopped Pedraza in the 6th round. But this Gustavo Lemos fight was supposed to be a lot of danger for Keyshawn Davis. Lemos was coming down in weight because his prior fight was a very close, razor close fight against Richardson Hitchens. Some people thought that Lemos might have beaten Hitchens. Hitchens was awarded the decision, but a lot of people were like, yeah, keep your eye on Gustavo Lemos. So Lemos went from 140 down to 135 to fight Keyshawn Davis, blew weight again by several pounds, ends up getting knocked out in the 2nd round in front of Keyshawn Davis's home crowd. So yeah, this was really a coming out performance. No, it wasn't a big enough scale to truly make Keyshawn Davis a superstar, but that performance certainly put him on the path, especially when you consider how he kind of underwhelmed against Miguel Madueño. That was kind of a rugged fight, kind of a nasty fight, and it wasn't a great looking showing for Keyshawn Davis, nor was his fight against Nahir Albright about 4 fights ago. That's the one that was overturned to a no contest because they fought in Texas and Keyshawn Davis tested positive for marijuana. So they ruled that one a no contest. But Nahir Albright had some good success against Keyshawn Davis. So before that performance against Gustavo Lemos, a lot of people were thinking, is this guy the real deal, or is it a lot of hype? And because he's, rolling with the camp of Terrence Crawford, Shakur Stevenson, that maybe we are overinflating the reputation of Keyshawn Davis. But that, again, that performance against Gustavo Lemos kind of confirmed a lot of people's ideas that Keyshawn Davis might absolutely be the real deal. So now he's going to be challenging Denis Berinchyk for Berinchyks WBO lightweight title. And Berinchyks' last fight, again, was against Emmanuel Navarrete, who I believe, once again, took it a bridge too far at 135. I didn't even love Navarrete at 130, even though he's had a ton of success. He's, been a champion for a long time. He's beaten Oscar Valdez twice, knocked Oscar Valdez out in his last fight. He also got hurt really badly and dropped nastily against Liam Wilson, came back and knocked Liam Wilson out. But I really liked Navarrete at 122 and 126. I thought that his reach, which is like 72 to 74 inches, super long reach. We're talking about like Errol Spence to Terrence Crawford length reach. And that, again, was at 122, 126. So Emmanuel Navarrete was kind of physically freakish when you consider his dimensions and his high volume, weird angle style, to where he was just running people over and overwhelming them with activity, just drowning them in activity at 122 and 126. Still kind of does so at 130. I mean, ask Oscar Valdez what he thinks about Navarrete at 130. But I feel like the field has more or less caught up to him at 130, to where you're getting a lot more super competitive, very close fights for Navarrete. Take, for instance, that fight against Robson Conceição, who often fights very good fighters very closely. That one was a draw for Navarrete. So Navarrete, for a moment, had a draw followed by a loss, and then he came back and beat Oscar Valdez via stoppage. But when Navarrete fought Denis Berinchyk, Berinchyks' feet were actually better than Navarrete's. Now, Navarrete has long had a style where he's running a lot of red lights, he's doing a lot of things unconventionally, but it's working for him. He crosses his feet, he looks like he's lunging into his own punches, and he's usually doing this without really paying the price for it. Well, against Denis Berinchyk, who again has a deep amateur pedigree, Berinchyks' legs in that fight were phenomenal. Look at how he's taking the step back when Navarrete lunges forward with his attack. Denis Berinchyk will take a step back just enough to get out of range and then will counter super effectively. Denis Berinchyk, believe it or not, actually threw more punches. Get this, he threw more punches than Emmanuel Navarrete. Who else can say that they've done that? Now, they landed about the same, but the idea is that Berinchyk nullified Navarrete's style, to where Navarrete was even a little bit more reluctant than usual to let his hands go. He was even telling his corner, like after the 7th or 8th round, he's pretty fast, and the corner was imploring Navarrete to go to Berinchyks' body, and then Navarrete kind of defiantly says like, okay, I'm gonna throw everything to the body then, but he's gonna hit me. And so Navarrete was basically matched not only in hand speed, he was exceeded in hand speed. Berinchyk had the faster hands, he had the better and more skilled feet, and he was probably the stronger guy in there. It's actually impressive that Navarrete fought Berinchyk so closely. But yeah, those mistakes that Navarrete usually makes and doesn't have to pay for, he was paying for it time and time again against Berinchyk. Again, I think Berinchyk was landing the more meaningful punches between the two. Like a lot of the times when Navarrete would go off balance, Berinchyk would hit him upside the head and knock Navarrete even more off balance. But yeah, it was still a very close and competitive fight. It was just the fight that we finally saw Navarrete get nullified and somebody fight him in a skilled enough way to where they are using Navarrete's style and his flaws against him. But again, I was super impressed by Denis Berinchyks' feet and his feet movement, especially when you consider his age, and we're going to revisit that idea as well. Berinchyk is now 36 years old, so for somebody in their mid-30s to move throughout the fight, it was a 12-rounder championship fight, to move in the way that Denis Berinchyk was moving, very unusual. So yeah, I've been really impressed by Berinchyk, and I think that these odds are way overblown. I'm actually a little bit tempted to put something on Denis Berinchyk. But just when I think that maybe I should bet on the 5-1 underdog, which I'm still considering, I'm thinking, would I just be throwing my money away because Keyshawn Davis really is as good as advertised? I think there's a possibility there. Now, Berinchyk, he likes to jump in and out. Again, he's really good at moving out of the way when you try to ambush him. And he does so at angles where he's often switching from orthodox to southpaw. He fights almost as much southpaw in a lot of his fights, or at least some of the fights that I've seen, as he does orthodox. So he can switch very frequently and very skillfully. A lot of times when people switch, they do it for offensive reasons, but they lose something on defense because they might be used to throwing punches from the opposite stance, but are they able to defend intelligently from that opposite stance? Berinchyk actually kind of maintains his movement, his defensive movement, when he switches to southpaw. Not that Navarrete wasn't catching him with some shots. Navarrete is going to catch everyone with some shots, but Berinchyk basically slightly outclassed Navarrete when they fought. So when I look at Denis Berinchyk versus Keyshawn Davis is so different than Emmanuel Navarrete. I actually think Keyshawn Davis is going to try to patiently walk Berinchyk down. I think Berinchyk actually has the happier feet between the two. Yeah, I know Berinchyks a 36-year-old and Keyshawn Davis is only 25, but Berinchyks feet are more active. Now, Keyshawn Davis moves really well as well. I mean, look at his fight. Again, his most recent fight against Gustavo Lemos. He had to circle very skillfully because Lemos likes to crouch and stay low and is very explosive, super hard hitting. Keyshawn Davis knew how to circle and move effectively laterally against Gustavo Lemos. So both of these guys are good movers, but I think that, again, Berinchyk does a lot more bouncing around. So I think that he might have some early success. Again, he's got pretty quick hands and he's a relatively accurate puncher, although you wouldn't really notice that in his fight against Navarrete. Like, I think he landed less than 20% of his punches against Navarrete, and Navarrete isn't the most elusive guy. So Berinchyk throws a good amount of punches, but again, there's a ton of movement. I think that he might beat Keyshawn Davis to the punch. He might even punctuate some of their early exchanges by throwing that one punch extra at the end of the exchange. But I think that Keyshawn Davis, if I read his style correctly, I think that he's going to be coming in kind of with a high guard. He's going to let Berinchyk burn some energy in the first 2 to 3 rounds. And then I think he's going to start or continue to walk Berinchyk down. I think he's going to go to Berincyk's body in a way that Emmanuel Navarrete couldn't, or at least wouldn't. And Keyshawn Davis doesn't have a reach as long as Navarrete. Think about that. That's how long Navarrete's reach is. He has a longer reach than the lightweight Keyshawn Davis, but Keyshawn Davis does have a 70-inch reach, which I believe is a longer reach than Berincyk's, even though I haven't seen what Berincyk's official reach is. So I think Keyshawn Davis is going to take a decent amount of shots in the first few rounds. Might not be super flush. He might be rolling with them pretty skillfully, but I wouldn't be surprised if Berinchyk wins the first 2 out of 3 rounds. But I think that from rounds 4, 5, when you start getting into the middle rounds, I think Keyshawn Davis is going to start walking him down, again, going to his body, and is going to be able to pull back when Berinchyk wants to ambush. Not only do I think Keyshawn Davis is going to start pulling back with some of those Berinchyk attacks, but I think he's going to launch that left hook and that straight right. Look at what those did to Gustavo Lemos. So after some early Berinchyk success, I think Keyshawn Davis, again, is going to start putting that patient pressure on Berinchyk, and it's going to start making Berinchyk pay for some of those ambushes. I wouldn't be surprised if Keyshawn Davis drops Berinchyk, but I kind of think that he's going to start doing some damage, enough damage to Berinchyk to where by the late rounds, Keyshawn Davis will have taken over by like the 8th or 9th round, and he's going to end up winning a decision, not a stoppage. I think that Berinchyk has enough craft, is a good enough fighter straight up to go the distance with Keyshawn Davis. He's got a pretty good chin. He's got a lot of IQ and wherewithal, but I do think Keyshawn Davis is going to start taking control of the fight. And I suspect that by the end of the fight, Denis Berinchyk is going to largely start looking his age due to the body attack that I expect Keyshawn Davis to start launching throughout this fight. But yeah, I'm going to take Keyshawn Davis to become the WBO lightweight champion, defeating Denis Berinchyk via, I'll say unanimous decision. Again, I think it's going to be interesting early, and I think that, you know, throughout the fight, Denis Berinchyk is going to continue to have certain moments, but I think that Keyshawn Davis is still going to control the bulk of the action. So even if Berinchyk is having moments in certain rounds, I think that Keyshawn Davis will still win the majority of those competitive rounds. So I see Keyshawn Davis winning something like 8 rounds to 4, If he does like 9-3, I would be pretty damn impressed. And obviously, if Keyshawn Davis stops Denis Berinchyk, that's just going to further blow up his reputation as one of the next big things in boxing. I mean, keep in mind, when Keyshawn Davis called out Gervonta Davis after destroying Gustavo Lemos, a lot of people in the boxing community were like, yeah, I think I like to see that. I like to see that. So it didn't sound crazy. You know what I mean? And Tank Davis is one of the most destructive, skilled, and explosive fighters in all of boxing. So yeah, Keyshawn Davis right now, he's on the right path. No, I don't agree with these super lopsided betting odds. I think that that's a huge disservice to Denis Berinchyk, but I do think Keyshawn Davis at the end of the day is going to win a unanimous decision to capture that WBO lightweight title. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. Who do you see winning and how? And how do you see the landscape at lightweight shaping up? We know who the champs are. The WBC champ is Shakur Stevenson. Gervonta Davis is the WBA champ. The IBF champ, I think, is still Vasily Lomachenko. I don't think they have stripped him of that title yet. And then Denis Berinchyk is currently the WBO champion. But yeah, how do you want to see the things playing up? I know that they're trying to angle for Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda for the WBC belt, being that William Zepeda is kind of like the interim WBC champ. I know he had that super close fight with Tevin Farmer. I actually wouldn't mind them running that one back, but William Zepeda is currently injured, so they kind of had a pause on the Shakur Stevenson versus Zepeda talk, and Stevenson instead is going to be fighting Floyd Schofield, which I think is way too soon for Schofield. Like, damn, what are they thinking? I mean, I know that the Saudis are paying a lot for this, but I mean, oh, that could go really bad for Floyd Schofield. But yeah, we know who the champs are. Vasily Lomachenko, I hope he gets back into the ring. I would love to see a unification fight between Gervonta Davis and Vasily Lomachenko. But yeah, this one's for the WBO title, and I hope that whoever wins between Denis Berinchyk and Keyshawn Davis fights a meaningful opponent in their next fight or two, whether that's a title unification fight against one of the other champs or against one of the top contenders. This is like a top ranked fight, so I wouldn't mind seeing one of them fight a Raymond Murataya or somebody of that caliber. Really good lightweight fighter. I hope he gets his opportunity soon. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.